Hey guys, it's me, SB, and today I'm going to be bringing you a beginner's sort of pattern. It's going to be pretty easy. It's only going to use like 2 stitches and some chains. I am going to be making a plant hanger. You used to see them around all the time, like back in the 90s, in the 80s, but they kind of look like, I don't know, they hang your plant from the ceiling. I have one in my bedroom that I made a few months back, so I'm going to recreate that. I didn't use a pattern or anything, I just kind of threw it together, so I just looked at the one that I had hanging in my bedroom. I will take a picture of it and put it up on the screen here. Okay, anyways, it was made in this hobbii ribbon yarn, and I'm going to make it in the same type of yarn using this color. I don't know, it's color 13, but if you go to hobbii.com, they still have some. They haven't been discontinued or anything. Anyways, so I'm using this yarn. You can use any yarn that you want. This is a number 5 bulky yarn, and I am using the hook size that it suggests, and it suggests a H or J, so I'm going to use a J hook. Also, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. You're just going to need some scissors and a large eye tapestry needle to weave in your ends. So let's get to it. So first things first, we are going to be working in the round. And I'm going to start out with a magic circle. You don't have to start out with a magic circle. You can just chain 3 and slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the hook to create a circle. But I prefer a magic circle. What I usually do is I take my 2 fingers, my index and my middle finger, and just wrap my tail yarn twice, so that's 1 and 2, just like this, with the working yarn closest to your palm, and I insert my hook into that little space through the 2 loops, and I basically yarn over and pull through to have a loop on your hook, and I just pinch all 3, the tail yarn and the 2 loops that we made, and I slip them off my fingers, and I just hold it there, and I pinch them, and I chain 1, and I never count this first chain because it's basically going to disappear when you tighten up your ring. Alright, first step is to chain 2, because we're going to be doing half double crochets. And we're going to half double crochet 8 times into our ring. And if you don't know how to half double crochet, I do have a video showing how to half double crochet and how to work into the 3rd loop of a half double crochet, which is what we're going to be doing in the next round. First things first, we're going to close our magic circle or magic ring, and what I do is I do a little tug on my tail thread just to see which one is pulling. Okay, so it's this one, and that is the thread that you want to pull to tighten your ring. So I'm just going to give a nice pull. Sometimes you gotta put a little force behind it, and as you can see, it starts to tighten up. There we go. And once you have that tightened, you're just going to give a tug on your tail thread, and voila, we have our ring nice and closed. And you can tighten that up even further to close that ring up. Now I'm going to count backwards and make sure I have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's my 8th stitch, and I'm just gonna slip stitch in that stitch if I can. Sometimes this first stitch is difficult to get into. And this is the only time that we're going to be slip stitching. The rest of the time we're going to be working in a spiral. So from here on out, we are not going to be joining. Now I'm going to start chaining 1 at the beginning. So chain 1, and we are going to be working into our 3rd loop. And I do have a video on half double crochet and working into the 3rd loop. I'll put it up here in the information center. I think it's going to be on this side because I have to flip the video. It's going to be on one of those sides. To locate the 3rd loop when we're working in rounds is you just flip your work to the wrong side, and the 3rd loop is going to be just hanging out right there. Go. Just like that. And we're going to be increasing every stitch. And increasing is just working two stitches into the same stitch. By the end of this round, which is round 2, you should have 16 half double crochets worked into the 3rd loop, because we are increasing every single stitch. And this might be a little tricky going throughout. Just pay attention, make sure you're counting, and yeah, I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I just completed my 16th half double crochet in the 3rd loop. So remember, we are not joining rounds, so we're just going to go ahead and work our next round, which is going to be 1 half double crochet in the 3rd loop, increase into the next stitch, which I gotta locate that 3rd loop. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing 1 half double crochet into the next stitch, and then increase into the next stitch. So we're going to be increasing every other stitch from here until the end of the round. Okay, I just completed my last half double crochets into my last stitch, and at the end of this round, which is our 3rd round, you should have 24 half double crochets worked into the 3rd loop. So remember, we are not joining, we are just going to go directly into our 3rd loop, which should be pretty prominent for this first stitch. It's right there. And we're going to half double crochet into that stitch. So that's 1. We're going to half double crochet into the 2nd stitch, 2, and then we're going to increase into our 3rd stitch, 3 and 4. And we're going to repeat this sequence doing 2 half double crochets into the next 2 stitches and increasing into the 3rd stitch. I just finished crocheting my last increase into the last stitch of the round, and at this point you should have 32 half double crochets worked into the 3rd loop. Now for our next round, which would be round 5, we are going to be increasing every 4th stitch. So we're going to half double crochet into the first 3, 2, 3, and we're going to increase our 4th stitch. Increase. So you should have a total of 5 stitches at your beginning round. And we're just going to repeat that all the way around 8 more times. Runaway train never coming back. I just completed my 5th round, and at this point you should have 40 half double crochets worked into the back loop. And our next round is going to be another increase round. So at the end of this round, which is our 6th round, you should have 48 stitches. And what we're going to do is we're going to half double crochet into our next 4 stitches. 2, 3, 4. And we're going to increase into our 5th stitch. 5, 6. So you're just going to repeat working 4 half double crochets into your next 4 stitches and increasing your 5th stitch. So just repeat that all the way around until you reach the end. Okay, so I just finished my 6th round, and this is what your work should look like at this point. So you're just going to have a spiral going around and around. That's why I didn't want to have any joins, because I just like the way that looks. If you feel like this is not wide enough for the base of your planner, just keep increasing in the same manner where you're just going to be going up 1 stitch each round. So it's very easy to adjust this pattern to whatever size you want. Just remember that this is going to stretch, so take into account that. So from here on out, we're no longer increasing, and we're just going to half double crochet all the way around for 2 rounds. So what I would suggest is to mark that first stitch of your round so you know where your round starts. You should probably do that throughout this pattern. So that's my first stitch of the round. And I'm just going to crochet all the way around for 2 rounds. If you want your base or your sides to be a little taller, just keep going until you get the width or the length that you want. But either way, I will meet you back whenever I complete my 2 rounds. I just completed my second round of no increases, and this is what you should have as well. Once you complete all of your rounds, it should start forming a little cup or a basket, if you will. Now, after this round, we are going to start working on the mesh part of our plant hanger. And this is going to consist of a double crochet and a chain 3. We are going to double crochet into our next third loop. And I am going to mark this stitch with my safety pin. And then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to skip 2 stitches and double crochet into the next stitch. And remember to go through that third loop to maintain the pattern that we created. So chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches, double crochet into the next stitch, and just repeat that all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. So I am 2 stitches away from my first stitch of my round, and you should be left with a chain 2. And from here on out, you're just going to go around and around, repeating that pattern, being sure to double crochet into your double crochets. So you really don't have to mark your round if you don't want to. It's probably a good idea to mark your rounds simply because you want to know where to stop. So yeah, just keep working in your mesh pattern, chaining 2, double crocheting into your double crochets, chaining 2, double crochet, all the way until you get the width that you want, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, a quick cut-in. I am testing my crocheted base onto my pot, and yours might look too small, but it's super stretchy, so just give it a flip to the other side and just place your pot right on top of it. My kitty is sneezing. Bless you. Oh. Anyways, so what I do is I just flip it inside out and I just work it around because it's going to be a tight fit, and that's what you want. You don't want it to be too loose because then it's going to stretch too much. It's looking pretty good. And we're getting there. So yeah, this is a great way to just test your plant hanger onto your pot. Just while you're working it up, just test it periodically to make sure it's actually gonna go up over the sides. Once you complete your mesh and you get it to the correct length that you want, the next step is to create our loops or our straps that are going to be holding up our plant hanger. So all we're going to do is we're going to chain, and then we're going to attach it to the other side of our work. And the first step is to go ahead and slip stitch into our first chain from our first stitch here. just to kind of give it more of a finished look up at the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chain. And I'm going to chain mine about, I'm going to say approximately 24 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Be sure to keep count of how many chains you have, because we're going to have to do the same thing on the opposite side, because we're creating 2 giant loops and attaching it to our work. 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. So I got my chains and I chained 64, and remember that it's going to have some pretty good stretch. So whenever you're doing this, just take into account the stretch. And what I'm going to do is I am going to kind of fold this in half and try to get it as even as possible. And what we're going to do is we're going to attach our loop to the other side. I don't want my chain to be twisted in any way. There we go. And I'm just going to find that chain where our double crochet is, and it looks like it's about lined up where I want it to go. So I'm going to insert my hook into that chain right next to our double crochet. I hope you can see that. So here's our double crochet stitch right here, and here's the chain right to the right of it. Sorry. And I'm going to grab my chain here, my long chain that I made, and make sure that everything is facing the right way, and just slip stitch right into that stitch right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch into that double crochet, and I'm going to turn my work. So I'm going to flip it over, and now we're going to be working into our actual chain. And you can either do a slip stitch or a single crochet. It really doesn't matter as long as we kind of add some bulk to this chain. I think it just makes it look a little neater and finished. So once you reach the other side of your chain, what you're going to do is you're going to slip stitch into that next, basically you're going to slip stitch into that chain to the left of your double crochet that you have in the previous round that we completed. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now you have one strap completed. I did twist mine a little bit, but I'm not too concerned about it. That's the beauty of this, is that it's pretty forgiving if you make any mistakes. Okay, now we are going to cut our yarn and reattach it to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this is what you should have so far. So what's going to happen now is I am going to line up where I attached my chains. And if it's a little crooked, that's fine. Okay, and I'm going to find a double crochet. Hopefully it's right in the middle. If you want, what you can do is go ahead and mark your other side here. So that way you have an idea of where you're going to attach it. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a slip knot. And just like that, set that aside, and I'm going to locate my double crochet, which is right here, and I am going to attach my yarn into that chain that's right next to that double crochet, and it's going to be to the right of it. And I'm just going to attach my yarn right here, and I'm just going to tighten this up and make sure. I'm not going to count that as a chain. And now all we're going to do from this point is exactly the same thing that we did for our first strap. So just complete that, and I'll meet you back here at the end. Okay, so I just completed my 64 chains, and now what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to do the same thing that we did on the other side, and we're going to attach it to our work on the direct opposite side. That's why I marked that stitch right there, so that way I wouldn't have to hunt for it. And I'm just going to try to make sure that my chain is as straight as I can get it. Remember, this is pretty forgiving, and I'm going to look at it from this angle here, and I'm going to attach my chain to the chain that's to the right of my double crochet. And I'm just going to slip stitch that in, just like that. I'm going to remove my stitch marker, and I'm going to slip stitch into my double crochet. And pretty much we're going to turn our work. So I'm going to chain one and turn, and we're going to work our single crochets into our chain. Okay, I just finished my last single crochet in my chain, and that's going to complete your loops or straps for your planter hanger. So just go ahead and fasten off. At this point, you are done. You can stop here and go ahead and weave in all your ends and hang up your plant, because, I mean, it's ready to be used. But I'm going to add a little extra detail to mine, and I'm going to create just a loop like this, so that way it looks a little more finished when it's hanging up. And all you're going to need is the yarn that you've been using and, you know, a little bit of time, because we're going to wrap this around our straps. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a loop, and you're going to just kind of have it hanging out like this. And we want to maintain that loop at the top. So I'm going to kind of get an idea of where I want it to go. So I'm going to start right here. Now this is going to be a little fiddly, but once you get the idea of how it's going to go, it's pretty easy. And I'm just going to wrap my yarn around, trying to keep it as flat as I can and kind of tight. Just like this. And once you get it to the thickness that you like, make sure that you cut it with enough, gosh, I don't leave my scissors. Make sure that you cut enough length. And what we're going to do is I'm going to wrap it around one more time, and I'm going to feed it through this loop. And remember the tail that you left sticking out? We're going to use this to pull that in. Just like that. And we're going to kind of tighten that up. And now it should be pretty secure and we can just cut it right there. And now we have our loop. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to weave in my ends and you're done. All right, and we're done. I hope you stuck with me throughout this whole process. I know I tend to kind of ramble on a little bit and it kind of seems like my thoughts aren't together. I mean, I know what I'm doing, I just don't know how to explain it. Hopefully the video was self-explanatory, but here it is. I think I made my straps a little too short, but as it hangs there, it stretches out. You can't really see the top, but there it is. You see how much stretch there is. But there it is. I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, definitely give me a like, a thumbs up, whatever, a comment, and a subscribe. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye!